Hello Eetu. You were organizing EuroMayDay in 2005 and 2006 when it happened in Finland. So could you tell us about that process and also how have you seen the organizing of the precariat in Finland?
Well, we had, of course, there was a process in 2004 which was not called EuroMayDay, but it was a Mayday March of the Precarious Workers, which I actually was not so much involved in organizing back then. But then later on, when I was there more, it was called EuroMayDay, and it was connected to the European-wide movement of precarious workers of the precariat. And in 2006, we decided that we will focus on the political demand of unconditional basic income, which was, for us, it was of course not only one demand which would mean some kind of adjustment to the social welfare system, but it was political demand which was meant to emphasize the point that the precariat is struggling to liberate itself completely from wage labor, and that our demand is to be free from subordinated work. And that was why we focused on this one demand: money and services enough to live without work. Which was then in 2006, the parade was very big. It had, I don't know, at least 1,500 people, which in Finland is a huge amount of people in this kind of demonstration. And it also, after that, there was some kind of minor skirmish that the Finnish press called a riot, which was maybe a bit. It may be called a riot in Finnish context, but not in any normal context. But anyway, it caused both the political analysis and helped with the media coverage caused by the riot, caused a huge political breakthrough for the demands of the precariat and the basic income, when everybody in Finland, beginning from the Prime Minister, had to make a moral attack against this march and against the demand of basic income. No, you can't get money without work. Work is a responsibility and work is a moral imperative, which actually better than anything proved that the wage labor in the old sense doesn't have the same meaning as it used to have, but that work is purely a moral imperative. It doesn't give you any kind of security in life or any kind of secure income. It doesn't give you anything else than just shit, and that's why it had to be kind of emphasized that it's our responsibility to do this, because everybody knows it's shit and they just have to do it, like the Christians have to kill their flesh in order to get into the heaven. And it was for us very important. But what happened then was that all kinds of political parties started trying to recuperate this idea that okay, we will and get this kind of patronizing point of view that we will help these poor and weak precarious people to get a good job, or maybe get some decent social welfare if they prove that they are trying to get a job as much as they can. And the kind of discussion, so-called political discussion about precariat, turned towards the direction of this kind of patronizing view. And then it started to be more clear to us that we have to somehow make the struggle more concrete. We have to focus on the space where people live, which is, of course, nowadays the space where people work and where they live is the space of the metropolis and of the city. We kind of took one step from this precarious struggles towards struggle about life in the metropolis, which means independent life free from work that is subordinated to capitalism. And we started to focus more on demanding free urban space, cheap housing, free public transportation, all these things that are the kind of conditions for independent life and for good life. Because if you have to pay for all that, then you have to go to work to get the money.
Yeah. And so from there we get to what have you been doing lately after the EuroMayDay, which would also have to do a lot with the city space and the metropolis, which has been working with the Roma migrants who have come to Finland and whose issue has, so to say, been big in Finland, what they can and what they cannot do in the city. Can you tell about that?
Yes, it was very clear when Romania and Bulgaria joined the European Union in 2008 and all the Roma migrants started arriving in Finland, using their right to freedom of movement. And the city of Helsinki immediately launched a huge violent media and police campaign against the presence of the Roma in the city of Helsinki. The police started harassing them, trying to evict their camps, prohibited them to live anywhere in the city, and the newspapers were writing that they are all criminals and that the same racist crap that of course was everywhere in Europe, or especially in Italy. And then we realized, of course, first of all, that what had been clear always to us, that the struggle of migrants is essential in capitalism, and that the restrictions of the right to move are essential to the control of the labor force. Because if you can move and you can search for better working conditions, then you can improve them and you can try to get better wages. But if you don't have the possibility to choose where you live and where you work, then the working conditions will always be worse. And this has always been essential in the history of capitalism. Capitalism and the capitalist labor market has never worked without controls that are not without very illiberal or very violent controls that concern people because they are of wrong nationality or wrong ethnicity or wrong gender or anything. And migrant struggle, of course, was always very important. But what was even kind of more crucial in the situation of the Roma was that, hey, they are EU citizens. They formally should have the right to move freely and to live in Helsinki, come here to search for better life. But their situation shows that this theoretical or formal right doesn't have any meaning because it can always be restrained, and these rights become real only if they are used and put into practice. And that was what the Roma were doing. They were struggling to kind of realize the rights of EU citizens. And Europe, of course, let's take this small... saying that the situation of the Roma, I thought it was we thought it was very essential because they were actually kind of trying what the rights of European citizens mean, and for us it was of course an essential question, essential struggle, because we had always said that the political space in which our political demands like basic income should be realized is the space of Europe, and on the other hand, of course, the situation of the Roma in the city was not only about a few Roma beggars or violin players. It was about what the city in which we live is like, and who can use the city space to their own means of livelihood and so on.
I think your notion about how the precarity or the notion of precariat had been recuperated or taken from the power to use has popped up also in Greece when we were talking with people and in other parts of the Europe, and taking that into account, how do you see at this moment the political situation within the movements in European context?
Well, What was, of course, for us and many other European movements, what was essential in the concept of precariat and the concept of precarity or precariousness was already in 2006 that precarization as a process or being precarious, it doesn't refer to just the kind of form of work contract or labor contract. It's not just about it. Precarity is not only about work; it's about the whole life, possibilities of life, and that's why for me it's very essential that the movements are somehow connected and rooted in the everyday life of the metropolis. And this is, of course, there's a big challenge for the European movements how to connect the everyday and kind of metropolitan or urban level of struggle and the European, how to create somehow everyday European struggles, because now the form of political work in the European level, it seems to me that it's very kind of ephemeral, that we have one big event somewhere else, then everybody goes there once in a year and we make a huge public effort, but nothing else happens, and the European political work or cooperation, it doesn't really like dive into the depth of the metropolis. So that's one very big challenge, and I don't have very clear or concrete ideas how about to do that, but one of course is the same idea that, for example, Alex Foti has been talking for years to form some kind of bio-syndicate, the syndicate of all precarious workers. That means also unemployed and students and people like that whose societal working rights would be struggled for and defended, and at the same time on kind of in the metropolitan space, but also as a European coordination. I don't really mean how this thing would work, that in a very very simple level, that we could have syndicalists working workplace or non-workplace struggles in the way that when I don't know, if we take the example now from the work side, of course we should think of also other stuff, but is that when some company in some city in Europe is exploiting their workers, we can do kind of metropolitan syndicalist actions in every European city for this one thing, because the enterprises are always international and they have the same, they work in the international public space or media space. For them it's very important their kind of the image they give them themselves, and you can sabotage them by attacking this in everywhere in Europe or something like that. It's just one idea, but
this is exactly the question about this form of transnational organization is exactly the question we presented in different places to different people, and what mostly came as a response was we should think, how have we not been able to do it in national level until now, before talking about that. So what came to my mind is that it seems at this moment that instead of precarity, the notion of austerity is the political reality that seems to bind people together into doing also very basic things that are connected to their lives. That's my notion.
Okay, I can of course understand it, because these new austerity measures, of course, they are so harsh that you can use them as a means to organize people. But on the other hand, of course, from the economical or political point of view, these austerity measures, they are nothing new. They are just continuation of the same neoliberal technologies of government that have been causing or working the precarization. It has been very clear in Finland, because the kind of transformation of production and of work started in Finland quite late, more only in the beginning of 90s with the big recession that there was in Finland. And what happened exactly then were huge austerity measures, especially the transformation of social welfare, which was always made more. Had to be create incentives to work, which means that it had to force people to go to work and and it was the whole kind of austerity in maybe slightly lighter form maybe started in Finland at the same time as precarization, and it was always maybe the most essential thing in precarization.
Yeah, of course it's like the latest form of the maximization of it, but anyhow it seems that it has been mobilizing people on a wider scale. Maybe the idea of 99% versus 1% more than the idea of precariat. What do you think?
Yes, of course, it's this crisis and how the states have saved the banks that fucked everything up. It's very clear that of course it has shown that the financial form of capitalism is not working in the sense it promised to work and so on. But of course it's still creating enormous wealth to the financial capitalists. So from their point of view, it's working very well. And then from that point, I don't think capitalism is in crisis. But of course now the exploitation and this whole thing is so clear that people are fucked up and they are maybe more ready to struggle. But I think what is still essential and why the whole idea of precarity and of the struggles of the precariat should be kind of the basis of the organizing is that I am a bit afraid that when we only talk about austerity measures, then the demand that we make is we want more state control and more state welfare back. But I do not think, first of all, that it's realist to think that the national states could anymore create any kind of institutions that would improve the situation of precarious workers and not only control people and make the situation worse. And because it's very clear that the state has become just one. As the state, it's a kind of bunch of different control institutions that now seem to be just only controlling the workers and trying to save the bankers' asses. So it's we have to be able to form and articulate the struggles in the way that we are not expecting something from the state and not trying to create a new state, but create some kind of new political space.